Salvete discipuli. All right, now we're going to talk about the Greek god Ares. So this is the first god that I've introduced so far that was not part of the Titanomachy. So thinking back how the Titans ruled the universe, Kronos and Rhea, and they had 6 children, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Ceres, and Demeter. And of course, Zeus and his siblings defeated the Titans and took over control of the universe. Ares is one of the first children of the Olympians. You can call him a second generation Olympian. He is the son of Zeus and Hera, that is Jupiter and Juno. I won't have nearly as much to say about Ares as I did with Poseidon and Zeus. He is the god of war. And of course, the Greeks and the Romans were both involved in wars a lot. But what's really interesting about this god is that the Greeks and the Romans view him very, very differently. Whereas with Poseidon and Neptune, they were basically the same god. Same thing with Zeus and Jupiter. The differences between Ares and Mars are pretty big in the way that the Greeks and the Romans viewed him. That is, the Greeks did not view Ares as a great god to worship and to love and to cherish. The war god that the Greeks viewed in that way was Athena, another war deity. Ares, you're not going to find many temples of Ares in Greece. That he was more of like a force of nature to be feared. And you'll notice that when you get to the Iliad, that the way that Ares is depicted is like a bloodthirsty, brutal monster. Whereas the Romans will make a really big deal out of Mars, as I'll get to a little bit later. Okay, so first thing you'll notice is that he doesn't have a beard. He is not going to look nearly as old as Zeus or Poseidon looks, so he's not going to look like a king as much as he's going to look like a soldier. He's not a kid. He's not going to look like a teenager generally the way that Apollo will when we get to Apollo. One thing that you'll notice, I notice that unfortunately the front of this has been broken off, but a very, very large helmet is going to be one of his biggest features. Generally a helmet with a giant plume or crest on the top. Here again, he does look youthful. Not as youthful as Apollo. Like maybe he's 18 or 20 or 22. Not like he's going to look 14 or anything like that. Frequently his helmet will have pictures of mythology on it. And again, the helmet's going to be one of our biggest, most prominent features. He will appear to be muscular. He will be in shape. He won't look skinny, but he isn't going to be of the same size as Zeus and Poseidon. The idea is like he's not old enough yet to have fully developed his musculature. Or maybe it's because he doesn't have as much political power. He is just the god of war. He's not the ruler of anything. Zeus, the ruler of the heavens. Poseidon, the ruler of the oceans. Oftentimes he'll just look like a young man. Again, not a boy, but a young man. And again, he's going to look strong. He's going to look in shape. But he's never going to be as big as Zeus or Poseidon, or certainly not as big as Hercules. You'll notice that a lot like with Zeus and Poseidon, the depictions of Ares are similar going from one sculpture to the next. And when we see lots of sculptures that really, really look similar, it might mean 2 things. One, that was just the way that the ancients really viewed that character, that persona, or that there were 1 or 2 really, really famous artistic depictions and artists since then have just copied it because it was so defining or so good. Okay, this is a Roman version of Mars. So like I was saying a few minutes ago, where the Greeks viewed Ares as a sort of brutal, savage, harbinger of death and destruction and just blood and guts, the Romans view him more as a god of Rome. That is, in the Roman tradition, Mars is the father of Romulus, the founder of Rome, and that he has a much greater role in the mythology. In the Greek myths, Ares is usually there to get into a fight. Any myth like the Trojan War that depicts a war, Ares is going to be out on the battlefield, but it'll never be involved in the strategy or like a council or really anything that Athena does, where she's a major motivator of the plot, where she talks to certain heroes, she gives power-ups to heroes, she's frequently talking to Zeus. Ares is pretty much just out there on the battlefield. And they may have a few stories involving Ares, not all that many, but to the Romans, Mars was one of their most important gods. The Romans had a different view of war than the Greeks did, although war is important to both societies. You'll see that this depiction of Mars here is incredibly elaborate. He is dressed in Roman war gear. You'll notice that there are sculptures all over him, on his armor, on his helmet. Again, notice the similarities from sculpture to sculpture of Ares or Mars. Here's another really famous one. Obviously, implements of war are going to be his defining features. You might see him with a spear, you might see him with a sword. You'll frequently see him with a helmet, shield, armor. That is, he's going to be dressed like a soldier, and he'll always be in shape. He'll always be muscular, again, just not quite as big as Zeus and Poseidon. Again, a lot more prominent in Rome, so you'll find a lot more of him in Rome. And again, in Greece, you're never going to find a temple of Ares. There were only a couple of them, and there really aren't that many like really important ones. The helmet, you'll notice that the helmet is above the head, like it's pulled up. Not that the Greeks or Romans would ever fight that way. The helmet wouldn't really serve much purpose up here. But the sculptor really wanted to emphasize the face and get the facial features out. So you'll see very few sculptures where the helmet is pulled down over the face, obscuring most of the face. Notice the sword here, the shield. Roman wall paintings. I've talked a lot about how sculptures generally have lost all their paint because paint just can't survive 2,000 years. On a vase, of course, that paint has been baked in. And on these wall frescoes, the reason why we have them is because they were trapped under ash or sand. That is, we have an enormous amount of Roman wall art from the destruction of Pompeii, Stabiae, and Herculaneum, the three towns that were covered by volcanic dust because of Mount Vesuvius and its famous eruption in AD 69. And the fact that it's only being uncovered, now in modern times means that we can discover the work of art and we can preserve it. And it's very unfortunate, obviously, that the volcano erupted because obviously a lot of people died 2,000 years ago. But if it weren't for that, we wouldn't have all this Roman art. So you'll notice that, again, the helmet is what's drawing you in here. Elaborate plume with feathers on it, and again, pulled up over the face so that the artist can draw the face. This is a really famous painting of Mars and Venus. Generally, Ares and Aphrodite, that is Mars and Venus, are related in some way or another, that they have an affair or that they have children together. They're not married, of course, because Aphrodite will be married to Hephaestus. And the painting of Mars and Venus is so famous from Pompeii that there's even a building that they just call the House of Mars and Venus because of the painting that they found there. Okay. I said that there weren't that many temples of Ares in Greece, but in Rome, Mars is very important. So you have a number of temples of Mars right in downtown Rome, in the Forum, either in the Classical Forum or in the Augustan Forum. And this one is specifically Mars Ultor, that is Mars the Avenger. Frequently, gods would have like a title after their name. One of the various aspects that they take. You'll notice that this, if you have studied columns, you'll see that these are Corinthian capitals here. And then here's what we have left of it. You'll notice that there are other buildings that are right nearby it. The Roman Forum is an amazing collection of buildings from different time periods, and frequently buildings in the Middle Ages or in the Renaissance were just built on top of the foundations of older buildings. You'll notice that street level is up here. So a lot of the things that we have from ancient Rome down in the Forum are literally down in the Forum, that you've got to walk down stairs to get down to where the ancient ground was. Cities tend to build up because, again, it's a lot easier to just build on an old foundation or a road. It's easier to just pave over the road than to rip it all out and go down, especially before modern times where we have, you know, modern technology like pile drivers and backhoes and things like that. So again, this is the Temple of Mars in Rome. And then I believe I've shown you a few of these paintings from this palace in Denmark. Here we see Mars as, you know, his classical image over the centuries has evolved. His sword, his shield. Here he looks a little bit older than his statues that we've seen, probably because of the mustache. And you might notice the symbol of Mars, which is a medieval symbol of astrology. The arrow pointing out of the circle is now kind of viewed as just the male symbol, whereas Aphrodite's or Venus's will be the female symbol. So here's a modern depiction. You'll notice the vulture, again, a bird like of death, you know, eating the corpses of those bodies left behind on a battlefield. You'll also notice the prominent wolf's head here. Going along with this story of Romulus and Remus, wolf imagery is heavily involved with that they were nursed by a she-wolf. So you'll see wolves and vultures being the animals sometimes associated with Mars. Here he does look a little bit older than some of his classical depictions. This is a modern depiction. Notice also that it's a spear instead of a shield. And Ares, of course, or Mars is very popular in video games that are based on ancient mythology because, of course, war games are very, very popular these days. Okay, so that is Ares or Mars, son of Zeus and Hera, that is, of Jupiter or Juno, and he is the god of war. But keep in mind that Athena is also a goddess of war, so he doesn't represent strategy or victory. That's Athena. He represents brutality, blood, death, destruction, and he'll frequently be found with weapons of war, armor, shield, spear, and of course his really prominent helmet. All right, that's Ares. Walete, Discipuli.